Every day he looks more and more like an egg.
Hi, I'm Ariane, and I'm doing abstract. So, in this lab, we determine the effects of varying dosages of trichomethylsulfonate, I can't say it, also known as tranquilizer, on a small fish.
Listen, Ariane, you're not gonna pass this class anyway.
You're so mean! Anyway, so we started off with 4 milliliters of 500 milligrams per liter and recorded it for 30 seconds. And then we added 4.6 milliliter of 40 milligrams per liter and recorded that for 30 more seconds. And we continued on with 500 milliliter with concentration of 60 milligrams per liter, 5.4 milliliters for 80 milligrams per liter, and 6.0 milliliters for 100 milligrams per liter, 6.5 milliliters for 120 milligrams per liter, 11.5 milliliters for 150 milligrams per liter, 12.5 milliliters for 175 milligrams per liter, and we ended with 11.1 milliliter for 200 milligrams per liter. The dosage started working at 5.4 milliliters for 80 milligrams per liter. This was when the fish went to the surface of the water and it looked like it was gasping for air. And this was because the tranquilizer lowers the pH level of the water, making it too acidic for the fish, as well as it blocks the action potential to the brain. So the dosages started working at 5.4 milliliters for 80 milligrams per liter. And this was when the fish went to the surface of the water and it looked like it was gasping for air. This was because the tranquilizer lowered the pH of the water and it became too acidic. And it's toxic for the fish. And then since it wasn't as serious, we continued on with our experiment. And we went up to 11.1 milliliters for 200 milligrams per liter. At this point, the fish stopped moving and it was facing downwards in a diagonal. And it looked like it was about to die. And the gills were moving at a really slow rate. So we figured it was dying. So anyways, when we figured out that our fish was gonna die, Alexa Silva pulled it out of the water and transferred it to a clean beaker of distilled water. And we did that in order to save our fish. And that's it.
So the first question of the introduction is, what is trichomethylsulfonate, provide its formula, structure, and its uses. So the molecular formula is C10H15NO5S, and its structure will be shown with a picture. And now for its uses. Trichomethylsulfonate is a white powder used for anesthesia, sedation, and the euthanasia of fish. Anesthetics are the drugs that reversibly relieve pain, decrease body movements, and suppress neuronal activity. The drug can have selective toxicity for poikilotherms, and what poikilotherms are that they are organisms with a varying body temperature that can be similar to or slightly higher than the temperature of its surrounding environment. This is due to their low rate of metabolism in the liver. Question number 2. How does trichomethylsulfonate affect the nervous system? Trichomethylsulfonate affects the nervous system by acting as a muscle relaxant that prevents action potentials from being created. By blocking action potentials, no signals can be exchanged between the brain. For that reason, no sensory input or muscle contractions would result in action potentials. Lastly, number 3, research how dosage levels affect small fish. Discuss the ranges from small sedation to euthanization levels. The concentration may vary with the size and the species of the fish. It is easily soluble in water, but it drastically decreases the pH as it increases the acidity. This may be toxic for the fish. The range from a small sedation to euthanization has a great effect on the fish. A small sedation is a dosage that you would begin with, as it would have little or no effect on the fish. But as the dosages increase from there, the greater their chance will be for the small fish to get tranquilized. The ending result would be euthanization, in which the dosages would be so high it ultimately killed the fish as it suffered from the presence of too much of it in its surrounding environment. The solution of sodium bicarbonate can be used to buffer the solution to get pH range of 6.5 to 7.5, which would neutralize the solution.
Hypothesis.
So our hypothesis is that as the dosage increases, it'll be harder for the fish to breathe in the water. This is because the tranquilizer lowers the pH of the water, which is not good for the fish. So for materials, we used 100 milliliter of water, a small fish, which was a goldfish, and trichine sulfonate.
Trichine methane sulfonate is used for anesthesia, sedation, or euthanasia of fish. The drug can have selective toxicity due to their lower rate of metabolism in the liver. TMS is a muscle tranquilizer that operates by preventing action potentials, and by blocking action potentials, no signals can be exchanged between the brain and the extremities. There will be no sensory input or muscle contractions, which would have been caused by action potential, which includes most muscles. Anesthetics used as tranquilizer dull sensory perception without complete loss of equilibrium, decreased oxygen consumption, and decreased excretion of metabolic products. Nevertheless, if fish are sedated quickly, the cortisol response can be blocked. TMS is acidic and can produce respiratory stress by lowering the pH of the fish's blood depending on the TMS dose and alkalinity. TMS may be buffered with sodium hydroxide or sodium bicarbonate. Cortisol levels increase as exposure time in TMS increases. The optimum concentration may vary with the same size and species of the fish and the other variables. It is easily soluble in water, both fresh and salt, but it drastically decreases the pH of water, increasing the acidity, which may be toxic for the fish. Here is a comparison of Tivi's group to our group for the results. The main difference that we saw was at 4 ml, they started to see the effect of trichine methane sulfonate for the fish, while for us, we started to see it at 5.4 ml. This is the first time that we saw the fish to turn over, but it went back to its original state. The main similarity that we saw was that at 11.1 ml, the gills were barely moving, and it was moving at a really slow rate, as if it was really hard for them to breathe, and this was the near-death experience of the fish.
Results. Woo. What you're seeing right now is the normal behavior of the fish without the tranquilizer. As you can see, it's very normal and very happy. As of now, we can actually see that the movement of the fish became slower, but other than that, there's actually no other things that we can see yet. Over here, we can see that the fish is starting to get furious and actually starts gasping for oxygen by going to the top of the water surface. On this clip, the fish actually starts to move a lot, and I'm saying that this is because it's trying to keep its balance, but it's still very furious and it's still trying to figure out what is going on. In this, you can actually tell that the fish is really gasping for some air, and later on starts to move to the very bottom, and this is because it's starting to lose its balance. Now, while the fish is trying to gasp for some air, it's actually starting to move up and down the water, and this is because it's actually losing its balance now. And the gills are moving faster and faster, and this is because it's trying to keep its balance. I said balance about like a million times. At this point, you can actually see that the fish stopped moving, but it's still breathing. Don't worry, it's still alive, but it stopped moving. And I guess this is because it's actually starting to tip over, but it doesn't want to, so it just stopped moving. Yup, over here we poked it, and it actually made some movements, but then after that, it literally just went all the way to the bottom, but it's starting to make some movements again later on, eventually. So over at this point, we can see that most of the movements are coming from the gills, and the full body of the fish is actually not moving. Over here, the fish can actually move again, and it's starting to do the same thing, going up and down the water again. But the tails are actually moving now, and the body of the fish, and it's not just the gills that are moving. Over here is a proof that we have a very strong fish, because as you can see, it's actually starting to tip over, and at one point it falls right here. And yeah, it's starting to tip over, but it's trying to stay strong by making movements with the gills. It's actually keeping its balance, and it's trying to breathe for some oxygen. Here we can actually see that the fish is trying to fight the tranquilizer, and it's starting to move a lot. Well, it's trying to move a lot, but it's not doing a very good job at it. Over here, we can actually see the fish fall twice, try to tip over, but stay strong. This is the start of the final moment of the fish,
Stop it!
which is actually facing down now and is now diagonal. But it's still breathing, and we later on revived it actually by putting it into distilled water. But yep, as you can see, it's slowly breathing. It's trying to breathe, but it's very slow and it's not moving anymore.
Anyway, after conducting this experiment,
Anyway,
so mean.
so what are you worried about? Fail with some dignity, child.